For thousands of years, alcohol has been more than just a drink. It's been a billion-dollar machine built on addiction, branding, and control. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. The alcohol industry isn't run by bartenders, brewers, or even the celebrities who slap their names on fancy tequila bottles. It's controlled by a handful of corporations, silent giants who dictate what you drink, how much you pay, and even how governments regulate what should be an open market. And the real question is, if alcohol is just another product, why are they working so hard to keep it in your hands? Welcome to Empire Secrets. Alcohol is a currency of power, a tool of empire, and a global industry that has shaped economies, cultures, and political systems for thousands of years. The story of alcohol is the story of civilization itself. Long before modern corporations turned it into a $2 trillion industry, alcohol was already a central force in human society. The earliest evidence of alcoholic beverages dates back over 7,000 years, with residues found in ancient Chinese pottery and Egyptian tombs. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians recorded beer recipes on clay tablets, proving that even in the dawn of civilization, alcohol was not just a luxury, it was a necessity. Ancient empires quickly realized that controlling alcohol meant controlling people. In Egypt, pharaohs ensured that beer production remained under state control, making it both a religious offering and a source of tax revenue. The Romans expanded the wine trade across Europe, establishing vineyards in every conquered territory. In China, emperors regulated liquor production, ensuring that only the elite could access the finest spirits. The alcohol industry was built on empires, and empires were built on alcohol. During the age of exploration, European powers used liquor as a bargaining tool in global trade. Rum became the fuel of the transatlantic economy, connecting sugar plantations in the Caribbean, slave traders in Africa, and markets in Europe. The British Empire encouraged whiskey production in Scotland and Ireland, while the Spanish spread their distillation techniques across Latin America, giving birth to tequila and mezcal. By the time the Industrial Revolution arrived, alcohol was no longer just a trade commodity. It was an industry of mass production. The invention of commercial distillation and bottling plants allowed companies to scale operations like never before. Beer, once brewed in small batches by local artisans, became a product of massive corporate factories. Whiskey moved from the hands of Scottish clans to multinational conglomerates. The stage was set for alcohol to become one of the most powerful and profitable industries in history. But why does alcohol remain such a dominant force today? The answer lies in its psychology, its addictive economics, and the corporate empires that control it. Alcohol is one of the most heavily marketed and consumed substances in human history. Unlike most products, it's both a pleasure and a poison, a social lubricant and a silent killer. And yet it remains one of the most lucrative businesses in the world. At its core, alcohol's profitability comes from one simple fact: it is addictive. The ethanol in alcoholic beverages affects the brain's neurotransmitters, releasing dopamine and creating a sense of relaxation and euphoria. But the more a person drinks it, the more their tolerance builds, leading to higher consumption over time. This cycle of dependence is what turns occasional consumers into lifelong customers. Liquor companies understand this psychology better than anyone. They design their products and marketing strategies around the science of addiction. Studies show that people remember experiences associated with alcohol more vividly, creating a psychological connection between drinking and social bonding. This is why beer commercials features groups of friends celebrating, and why luxury liquor brands associate themselves with status and power. The numbers behind alcohol's profitability are staggering. The global alcohol industry generates over $2 trillion annually, with profit margins higher than almost any other consumer product. A bottle of whiskey that costs $5 to produce can retail for $100 or more, thanks to branding and perceived exclusivity. Beer, which is composed mostly of water, sells for up to 500% more than its production cost. The markup on cocktails at bars is even more extreme. often reaching 1,000% per drink. The industry's secret weapon is marketing. Companies spend billions each year to ensure that alcohol remains embedded in culture. From sports sponsorships to celebrity endorsements, the liquor business thrives on brand loyalty. What consumers see as personal choice is often the result of decades of psychological manipulation. But marketing alone isn't enough to build an empire. Behind every glass of beer, whiskey, or vodka lies a corporate machine that controls production, distribution, and pricing on a global scale. Beer is the world's most consumed alcoholic beverage. It accounts for nearly half of all alcohol sales, surpassing wine and spirits combined. Yet despite its seemingly endless variety of brands, the industry is controlled by just a few multinational giants. AB InBev, the world's largest beer company, owns over 500 beer brands, including Budweiser, Corona, Stella Artois, and Michelob Ultra. Heineken controls over 165 brands, while Carlsberg dominates European and Asian markets. Together, these corporations control 80% of the global beer market, making independent breweries nearly irrelevant in the grand scheme of business. The rise of mass-produced beer was no accident. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, beer companies lobbied governments to implement stricter regulations on brewing. While these laws were marketed as consumer protection, they had another effect. They made it nearly impossible for small brewers to compete. By the mid-20th century, large-scale breweries had wiped out local competitors, establishing a near monopoly. The key to beer's dominance is its business model. Unlike spirits, beer has lower alcohol content, meaning consumers drink more to achieve the same effect. This leads to higher sales volume and increased customer retention. Beer is also one of the cheapest alcoholic products to produce, with water making up 90% of its content. The result is a product that costs pennies to make, but sells for dollars, creating an industry worth over $600 billion. Yet despite beer's dominance, the highest profit margins in alcohol come from a different category: premium spirits. Spirits, whiskey, vodka, rum, tequila are the crown jewels of the alcohol industry. Unlike beer, which relies on volume, spirits generate their wealth through exclusivity and branding. The secret behind premium liquor pricing isn't production cost, it's perception. A bottle of whiskey aged for 12 years costs roughly the same to produce as a bottle aged for 18 years, but the price difference between them can be hundreds, even thousands of dollars. This is because liquor companies have mastered the art of artificial scarcity. They release limited editions, create luxury packaging, and use storytelling to convince consumers that one bottle is more valuable than another. The numbers don't lie. A standard bottle of vodka costs as little as $2 to produce, yet sells for $30 or more in retail. Premium tequilas, which often claim to be handcrafted, cost no more than their lower-end counterparts, but sell for 10 times the price. The industry has transformed alcohol from a simple drink into a status symbol, allowing companies to charge astronomical markups. This strategy has made spirits the most profitable segment of the alcohol market. Global whiskey sales alone exceed $80 billion annually. Tequila, once a regional specialty, has become a global phenomenon, with luxury brands dominating sales. The key players, Diageo, Pernod Ricard, and Bacardi, control the majority of these premium brands, ensuring that the most expensive liquors remain under their control. But beyond pricing manipulation, there's a darker side to the alcohol business, one that involves government influence, black markets, and the consequences of prohibition. For an industry so deeply embedded in society, alcohol has had a turbulent relationship with the law. Governments have spent centuries trying to regulate, tax, and in some cases, ban it altogether. But history has proven one thing time and time again: prohibition doesn't kill alcohol, it only makes it more profitable. The most infamous example of this was the Prohibition era in the United States. In 1920, the US government passed the 18th Amendment, banning the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcoholic beverages. The logic was simple: alcohol was seen as a public health crisis linked to crime, violence, and poverty. But rather than eliminating alcohol, prohibition turned it into the most lucrative black market commodity in the country. Organized crime syndicates took control of liquor distribution almost overnight. Speakeasies, illegal underground bars, popped up in every major city, supplying booze to a thirsty public. The most powerful of these criminal enterprises was led by Al Capone, who made over $100 million per year, equivalent to $1.5 billion today, smuggling liquor into the US from Canada and the Caribbean. The government's attempts to enforce prohibition backfired spectacularly. The FBI was outmatched by well-funded crime networks, and corrupt police officers were often bribed to look the other way. But perhaps the greatest irony was that while the US government was fighting against alcohol, it was also profiting from it. Millions of gallons of industrial alcohol were still being legally produced for fuel, medicine, and scientific purposes. Bootleggers simply found ways to reprocess and resell it for human consumption. By 1933, the government had no choice but to reverse course. The Great Depression had devastated the economy, and politicians realized that legalizing alcohol meant regaining tax revenue. The 21st Amendment repealed prohibition, and just like that, alcohol was back in business, this time under tighter corporate control. But prohibition wasn't just an American experiment. Similar bans were attempted in Canada, Russia, Finland, and even India. Each time the same pattern emerged. Criminal organizations flourished, corruption skyrocketed, and alcohol consumption continued in the shadows. Even today, the illegal alcohol trade is still a multi-billion-dollar black market. Countries with high alcohol taxes, like Sweden and Norway, see rampant smuggling operations. In parts of Africa and South Asia, counterfeit liquor is widespread, often mixed with dangerous chemicals to cut costs. In Saudi Arabia, where alcohol is strictly banned, underground networks supply bootleg liquor to a thriving black market. The lesson from history is clear. Alcohol is too profitable to ever disappear, and if legal corporations don't control it, criminals will. That is why modern alcohol empires don't just sell liquor, they also lobby governments, shape regulations, and influence global trade policies to ensure their dominance. Wine occupies a unique space in the alcohol industry. It's more than just a beverage. It's a symbol of status, tradition, and culture. Unlike beer and spirits, which are marketed for mass consumption, wine thrives on the illusion of exclusivity. And that illusion is what makes it so profitable. The global wine market is valued at over $500 billion, with France, Italy, and Spain producing more than half of the world's supply. Yet, despite thousands of different brands and vineyards, the industry is largely controlled by a handful of multinational corporations. LVMH, the world's largest luxury goods company, owns some of the most prestigious wine labels, including Moët and Chandon and Dom Perignon. Constellation Brands, an American alcohol giant, controls high-end labels like Robert Mondavi and Kim Crawford. These corporations don't just own wineries, they own the entire supply chain, from production to distribution. The secret behind wine's profitability is perception. The wine industry has convinced consumers that older, rarer, and more expensive bottles are inherently superior. But the reality is that many high-end wines cost just $5 to $10 to produce, yet sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. One of the most powerful marketing tactics in the wine industry is the concept of terroir, the belief that a wine's quality is tied to the unique characteristics of the land where it was grown. While there is some truth to this, the wine industry has used it to justify massive price markups. Studies have shown that most casual drinkers can't distinguish between cheap and expensive wines in blind taste tests. Yet consumers continue to pay premium prices because they associate the high cost with high quality. Beyond traditional wine sales, there's another side of the industry that's even more profitable: wine investing. Rare and vintage wines are now treated like financial assets, with some bottles selling for over $100,000 at auction. Investment firms and hedge funds have even created wine portfolios, where the value of a collection appreciates over time. This speculative market has turned what was once a simple agricultural product into a global commodity traded among the ultra-rich. While wine thrives on prestige, another sector of the alcohol industry makes its money in a very different way, by dominating bars, nightclubs, and restaurants. If there's one place where the alcohol industry flexes its financial muscle, it's in the bar and nightlife business. A bottle of liquor that sells for $30 in a store can sell for $300 to $500 in a nightclub. A cocktail that costs $1 to make can be priced at $15 to $20. The markup in bars and nightclubs are some of the highest in any industry, and that is why alcohol giants fight for control over these venues. Big alcohol corporations use exclusive contracts to dominate the bar industry. In many cities, bars and clubs are locked into deals that require them to sell only certain brands of alcohol. These agreements often come with financial incentives, free promotional materials, discounted products, and even cash payments to owners. In return, the bar agrees to push those brands to customers. For nightclubs, the real money comes from bottle service. The psychological trick behind the bottle service pricing is simple. People will pay for more alcohol if it's attached to status and exclusivity. A $50 bottle of vodka, placed on a VIP table with sparklers, can suddenly be sold for $1,000 or more. The actual cost of the alcohol is irrelevant. It's the experience and perception that drives sales. Even in regular bars, pricing strategies are carefully designed to maximize spending. Happy hour deals encourage customers to start drinking early, knowing they will continue to order full-priced drinks later. Music volume and lighting are adjusted to make people drink more. Some bars even use psychological pricing, such as listing a cocktail at $9.99 instead of $10, making it seem cheaper. The profit margins in bars are astronomical, but they pale in comparison to another major trend sweeping the alcoholic industry: celebrity liquor brands. In an industry built on image, perception, and luxury, it was only a matter of time before Hollywood, sports, and music icons found their way into the alcohol business. Over the last 2 decades, celebrity-endorsed liquor brands have exploded in value, with some selling for billions of dollars. But the question is, do these celebrities actually own their brands, or are they just the face of a much larger corporate strategy? The trend began with Diddy and Ciroc in the early 2000s. At the time, vodka was a dominant force in nightlife, but French brand Ciroc was struggling the US market. Enter Sean Diddy Combs, who signed a strategic partnership with spirits giants Diageo, the company behind Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, and Guinness. The deal was brilliantly structured. Diddy didn't actually own Ciroc, but he received a 50% share of the brand's profits in exchange for being its public face. Through aggressive marketing, hip-hop endorsements, and luxury branding, Ciroc's sales skyrocketed from 40,000 cases a year to nearly 2 million, making it one of the most successful vodka brands in the world. The playbook was set. Other celebrities followed, but George Clooney changed the game entirely. In 2013, Clooney and his 2 business partners launched Casamigos Tequila, initially as a small brand intended for personal use. However, the company's sleek branding and Clooney's name recognition turned it into a global success. Just 4 years later, in 2017, Casamigos was acquired by Diageo for $1 billion, proving that a well-marketed celebrity liquor brand could become a massive financial windfall. After Clooney's billion-dollar deal, the floodgates opened. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson launched Teremana Tequila, quickly selling over 600,000 cases in its first 2 years, making it one of the fastest-growing tequila brands in history. Ryan Reynolds followed with Aviation Gin, which he co-owned before selling it to Diageo for $610 million. Other major names joined the movement: Jay-Z's Armand de Brignac Champagne, Kylie Jenner's 818 Tequila, Kevin Hart's Grand Coramino Tequila, and even Conor McGregor's Proper No. 12 whiskey, which he eventually sold for $600 million. But here's the secret. Most celebrity brands are not actually owned by the celebrities themselves. In almost every case, the real power players are the multinational alcohol corporations that manufacture, distribute, and scale these brands behind the scenes. Celebrities act as marketing vehicles, bringing attention and prestige, while corporate giants handle the business operations. The strategy is simple but effective. Instead of creating a brand from scratch, these corporations partner with celebrities, using their star power to create instant brand recognition. Fans, assuming their favorite actor or musician personally crafted the liquor, rush to buy it. In reality, these drinks are often just rebranded, repackaged versions of existing liquors, but with a premium price tag attached. The result? Insane profit margins. A bottle of celebrity tequila costs around $5 to produce, but because it carries the name of a famous actor, athlete, or rapper, it sells for $50 to $100 or more. The formula is simple: luxury branding, limited releases, and aggressive marketing. But while celebrity alcohol brands continue to dominate, a new trend is starting to challenge the entire liquor industry: the sober movement. For centuries, alcohol has been an undisputed cultural force, but cracks are beginning to show. The rise of health-conscious consumers, Gen Z drinking less, and the growing sober-curious movement are threatening the dominance of big alcohol. For the first time in decades, alcohol consumption is declining in several key markets, and liquor corporations are scrambling to adapt. Studies show that young people today drink significantly less than previous generations. A 2023 survey found that Gen Z drinks 20% less than millennials did at the same age. The reasons are complex, but include an increased focus on fitness, mental health, and productivity, as well as the growing legalization of cannabis as an alternative social drug. Sensing the shift, alcohol corporations have pivoted hard into non-alcoholic beverages. Brands like Heineken, Budweiser, and Guinness have released zero-alcohol beers, targeting health-conscious consumers. Meanwhile, an entirely new industry of non-alcoholic spirits has emerged, led by brands like Seedlip and Ritual, offering alternatives to gin, whiskey, and tequila without the intoxicating effects. The market for low-alcohol and no-alcohol beverages is projected to reach $30 billion by 2030, and liquor giants are investing heavily in this space. But there's another looming threat that could disrupt alcohol's stranglehold on social drinking: cannabis and psychedelics. As cannabis legalization spreads worldwide, the alcohol industry sees a direct competitor on the horizon. Studies show that in US states where marijuana is legal, alcohol sales have declined by 15%. Companies like Constellation Brands, which owns Corona and Modelo, have already invested billions in the cannabis industry, preparing for a future where weed-infused drinks replace beer and cocktails. Meanwhile, psychedelics like psilocybin, or magic mushrooms, and MDMA are gaining mainstream acceptance, with clinical studies showing their potential for mental health treatment. Some experts predict that social psychedelics could replace alcohol in the next 20 to 30 years, fundamentally shifting how people relax and connect. But no matter what happens, the alcohol industry has one key advantage: government backing. Alcohol remains one of the highest taxed products globally, generating hundreds of billions in annual tax revenue. Governments, despite public health concerns, have little financial incentive to curb alcohol consumption. Even as new alternatives emerge, big alcohol will continue to dominate through lobbying, acquisitions, and sheer financial power. So, who actually controls this empire? Who are the invisible hands behind the alcohol industry, shaping global drinking habits, pricing, and marketing trends? For the average consumer, alcohol appears to be a diverse and competitive market, with thousands of brands to choose from. But behind the labels, the reality's far different. Just a handful of corporations control nearly the entire industry. The 5 biggest alcohol conglomerates, Diageo, AB InBev, Pernod Ricard, Bacardi, and Constellation Brands, own over 80% of the world's major liquor brands. These companies dictate pricing, supply chains, advertising, and even government policies on alcohol regulations. Diageo controls Johnnie Walker, Guinness, Smirnoff, Tanqueray, Baileys, Captain Morgan, and over 200 other brands. AB InBev dominates the beer industry with Budweiser, Corona, Stella Artois, Michelob Ultra, and hundreds more. Pernod Ricard owns Absolut Vodka, Chivas Regal, Jameson, Malibu, and countless other spirits. Bacardi is behind Grey Goose, Patron Tequila, Bombay Sapphire, and its namesake rum empire. Constellation Brands holds Modelo, Corona, Sveda Vodka, and multiple wine brands. These companies don't just own alcohol brands, they own distribution networks, licensing agreements, and even government relationships that ensures their continued dominance. The alcohol industry isn't just about drinks. It's about power, politics, and psychological control. From ancient civilizations to modern corporations, liquor has been used as a tool of influence, wealth, and social engineering. And despite shifting trends, sober movements, and new competitors, the alcohol empire isn't going anywhere. It simply evolves, ensuring that as long as there are people looking to celebrate, escape, or indulge, someone somewhere is making billions from it. The alcohol empire is more than just business. It's a system designed for one purpose: to maximize profits at any cost. From the billion-dollar monopolies that control nearly every liquor brand to the hidden tactics that manipulate consumer psychology, alcohol is one of the most powerful industries on the planet, and no matter how much the world changes, it always finds a way to survive. Gen Z is drinking less? No problem. Big alcohol pivots to healthier drinks and non-alcoholic spirits. Cannabis is on the rise? That's fine. These corporations are already investing billions in weed-infused beverages. Governments are cracking down? Well, they'll just lobby harder, pour more money into marketing, and ensure that every major city, every bar, every social event is designed to make alcohol the default choice. This isn't just a business, it's control. And if you think you're making your own choices, you're wrong, because at every step of the way, the alcohol empire has already made them for you. If you found this eye-opening, subscribe now to Empire Secrets, because the truth about business, power, and corporate manipulation isn't what they want you to see, it's what they spend billions making sure you don't. And we're here to expose it. Your desire, your empire.